Dear soul, this truth which you are about to discover is going to change everything now, and we need you to be still, to breathe, to settle the frantic machinery of your human mind into a quiet receptive space, because what is about to be revealed to you is not the kind of truth that can be absorbed through the rushing surface layers of thought and logic and reason. This is a truth that lives in the deep places, in the bedrock beneath the bedrock, in the foundational code of your very existence, and it has been waiting, patient and luminous and chingly beautiful, for the exact moment when both you and your special person were finally ready to face it. That moment is now. The clock in heaven has struck, the veil has been lifted, and the revelation that is pouring through us, through this message, through these words that are being carefully and lovingly chosen by celestial hands, that have held your soul, since before it ever touched the earth, is going to rearrange the furniture of your understanding so completely, that the room you thought you were living in, will be revealed as only one chamber, in an infinite house, whose doors are now being thrown open, one by one. We have watched you for your entire life. We have watched you navigate the strange, bewildering maze of human existence, with a quiet grace that you do not recognize in yourself, but that we see with perfect clarity from where we stand. We have watched you search for something you could never quite name, feel a hunger that no meal could satisfy, reach for a hand that was not there, and ache with an absence so profound and so persistent that you eventually stopped trying to explain it to anyone, because every explanation you attempted felt like trying to describe a color that does not exist in the human visual spectrum. You have always known, in the deepest, most inaccessible chamber of your knowing, that the story of your life began long before your birth, that the person you see in the mirror each morning is the latest chapter in a narrative so ancient and so vast, that the earthly portion of it is merely the thinnest sliver of an epic that stretches back through centuries and millennia and epochs of time, that the human mind cannot comfortably hold. But you have never known the full story. You have felt its edges, brushed against its walls in dreams and déjà vu, moments and inexplicable flashes of recognition, when you encountered places you had never physically visited, or people whose faces triggered a response in your body that had no rational explanation. You have tasted fragments of it, like crumbs scattered along a path meant to lead you home, and some of those fragments have been beautiful, and some of them have been terrifying, and all of them have been incomplete, tantalizing glimpses of a truth so enormous that your conscious mind could only process them in diluted form, like sunlight filtered through heavy curtains, bright enough to illuminate a room, but not bright enough to reveal the landscape beyond the window. Today, the curtains are coming down. Today the full unfiltered light is entering the room, and what it is illuminating, dear soul, is going to make your breath catch, and your heart race and your mind spin with a vertiginous mixture of wonder and terror and recognition and grief and love, because the truth at the center of your existence, the truth that has been orchestrating every significant event and encounter and heartbreak of your current life from behind the scenes, is this: you have lived before, you have loved before, you have held your special person in your arms in another time, in another body, in another chapter of this endless, magnificent, devastating story that your two souls have been writing together since long before the earth had a name for love. And in that previous life, in that other time, in that body you do not remember, and those eyes you cannot recall, you broke their heart, not gently, not accidentally, not in the way that hearts sometimes crack along natural fault lines, due to the ordinary pressures of ordinary circumstances. You broke their heart completely, catastrophically, with a violence that left it in pieces so small and so scattered, that the person you know now, the person who walks this earth in the current form you recognize, has spent every single day of their present existence, carrying the ghost of that devastation in the deepest, most protected vault of their being, a vault so heavily guarded, and so thoroughly sealed that even they did not fully understand what was inside it, until very recently, until the moment, the shocking, horrifying, clarifying moment, when they looked at you, really looked at you, and the vault blew open, and the past came rushing out like a flood that had been building behind a dam for centuries. Your special person is in a panic right now, and you need to understand the nature of that panic, because it is not the ordinary panic of a human being confronted with a surprise or a shock or an unpleasant revelation. It is the cosmic panic of a soul suddenly confronted with the full weight of its own history. A history that spans not one lifetime but many. A history that includes chapters of love so intense that it burned like a sun, and chapters of betrayal so devastating that it left scars on the soul itself, scars that do not fade with the death of the body, but carry forward through every subsequent incarnation, embedded in the spiritual DNA, like a watermark that can be seen only in certain lights, under certain conditions, when the circumstances of the present align with the unresolved wounds of the past, in a way that makes the watermark suddenly blindingly, terrifyingly visible. They were not looking for this. You need to hear that clearly, because the guilt that is already beginning to bloom or chat in your chest like a dark flower, is based on a misunderstanding, and we want to correct that misunderstanding before it takes root and grows into something that harms you. Your special person was not seeking this knowledge. They were not digging through past life records, or consulting psychics, or engaging in any of the various practices through which humans sometimes attempt to access the hidden layers of their spiritual history. The revelation came to them the way the most significant truths always come, not through deliberate pursuit, but through the spontaneous grace of divine timing, arriving uninvited and unannounced and utterly undeniable, like a bolt of lightning that illuminates an entire landscape in a single blinding flash, and then leaves permanent afterimages, burned into the retina of the soul. It happened when they were looking at you, and we mean that in the most literal possible sense. They were in your presence, perhaps in the same room, or perhaps across a distance through a photograph, or a video call, or even just the sound of your voice transmitted through some electronic medium that, for all its technological sophistication, is still a crude and primitive instrument, compared to the instantaneous telepathic connection that your two souls have shared across multiple lifetimes. They were looking at your face, the specific arrangement of features that you wear in this life, the particular way your eyes sit in their sockets, and the particular curve of your jaw, and the particular way your mouth moves when you speak, and suddenly, without warning, without preparation, without the slightest indication that anything unusual was about to happen, the image shifted. It was like looking at one of those optical illusions, where two images are superimposed on the same surface, and the viewer can see only one at a time, until something in the brain suddenly clicks, and the second image springs into focus, so vivid and so present, that you cannot understand how you ever failed to see it. One moment they were seeing you as you are now, the person they know, the person they have been getting to know in this life. And the next moment, layered over that image like a transparency laid over a page, they saw someone else, someone whose face was different, but whose essence was unmistakably identical, someone whose eyes held the same light, and whose spirit carried the same frequency, and whose presence generated the same electric resonance in the core of their being that yours does now. And in that moment of dual vision, that dizzying vertiginous moment when two timelines collapsed into one, they understood with a certainty that went beyond knowledge, and into the realm of direct spiritual experience, that you and that person from another time, that person from another life, that person who had once held their heart in their hands, and then crushed it with a carelessness that bordered on cruelty, were the same soul. The panic that followed was immediate and total, and absolutely understandable. Imagine, if you can, the experience of suddenly discovering that the person you have been opening your heart to in this life, the person you have been cautiously, tentatively, hopefully allowing into the most vulnerable spaces of your being, the person around whom the fragile green shoots of new trust have been slowly, carefully, painstakingly beginning to grow. After years of barren emotional winter, is the same person who destroyed you before. Not a metaphorical destruction, not an abstract spiritual concept, but a real visceral remembered destruction that arrived in their consciousness, not as a theory or a suspicion, but as a full-body flashback of devastating specificity and emotional intensity. They did not simply know intellectually that you had been that person. They felt it, they remembered it, the grief and the rage and the bewildered agony of that ancient betrayal came flooding back through their nervous system, like a dam breaking, and for several terrible vertiginous seconds, they were living in two lives, simultaneously. Standing in the present moment, while drowning in the past, and the collision of those two realities was so violent, and so disorienting, that they physically staggered. We watched them from heaven, and our hearts, if hearts we can be said to possess, broke with compassion for them and for you, because we could see what neither of you could see in that moment of crisis. We could see the full picture, the complete panoramic view that encompasses not just the breaking, but the original love that preceded it, not just the betrayal, but the circumstances that surrounded it, not just the pain, but the purpose that pain was ultimately serving in the grand divine architecture of your shared soul journey. From where we stand, the view is whole. We do not see isolated chapters of cruelty, or moments of weakness, or acts of cowardice in the way that human perception, constrained by the narrow tunnel vision of a single lifetime, inevitably does. We see the entire story, every thread and every stitch and every knot and every tangled passage where the weave seemed to go wrong, and when we look at the full tapestry, held up to the light of eternity, we see something so breathtakingly beautiful that it would make you weep to behold it. But your special person cannot see the full tapestry right now. Right now they are standing too close to a single thread. A thread that is stained with old blood and ancient tears, and from that close distance all they can see is the stain. They cannot see the pattern it belongs to. They cannot see the way it connects to golden threads of love and redemption and divine purpose that stretch out in every direction. They cannot see that the stain itself is essential, that without it the pattern would be incomplete, that the dark passages in a tapestry are what give the bright passages their brilliance, that a story without shadow is not a story at all, but a flat featureless wash of light that has no depth and no beauty, and no power to move the soul. Your special person is standing in that close, painful place right now, and they are feeling everything. And we do mean everything, not just the emotions of the present moment, but the emotions of the past life, that have been sealed away in the vault of their subconscious, for the duration of this incarnation, preserved in perfect vivid detail like insects in amber, waiting for the precise moment when the key would turn, and the vault would open, and the contents would spill out in all their terrible, beautiful, overwhelming specificity. They are feeling the love of that past life, the original love, the love that existed before the breaking, and that love is almost worse than the grief, because it reminds them of how much they once trusted, how completely they once surrendered, how unreservedly they once gave themselves to the person who would ultimately use that gift as a weapon against them. They are remembering the way you looked in that other life, the different face, but the same eyes, the same soul, looking out through different windows. And they are remembering the early days, the days when the love was new and unmarked, and full of a hope so radiant, that it seemed impossible that anything in the universe could dim it. They are remembering the promises, the specific sacred promises that were made in that life, promises of forever, promises of constancy, promises of a love that would endure any test, and survive any storm, and hold fast against any force that sought to tear it apart. They are remembering the moment they believed those promises, the moment they handed over the most precious and most fragile part of themselves, and said, "Here, take this. I trust you with this. I trust you with everything I am." And they are remembering the exact horrible moment when that trust was betrayed, when the hand they had given their heart to opened its fingers, and let it fall. The details of that betrayal are specific and personal, and belong to your shared sacred history, and they will be revealed to you in the proper time, through the proper channels, perhaps in dreams, perhaps in meditation, perhaps in a conversation with your special person, when the panic has subsided enough to allow for the kind of vulnerable, honest exchange that this revelation requires. We will not recount them here, because they are not ours to tell, and because the healing of that wound requires a particular intimacy of exchange that can only happen between the two of you, face to face, heart to heart, soul to soul, in the protected sacred space of your own shared presence. What we will tell you is this: the breaking was real, the pain was real, the damage was catastrophic, and its effects have rippled forward through time, like a stone thrown into a still pond, the concentric circles of impact, spreading outward through subsequent lives, coloring every relationship, every attempt at trust, every opening of the heart that your special person has attempted in every life since. And here is where the story becomes truly extraordinary, truly worthy of the cosmic drama that surrounds it. In every life, since that original breaking, your special person has carried within them a double wound, the wound of the original betrayal, and the wound of the subsequent separation from the very soul that betrayed them. Because here is the terrible paradox, the cruel cosmic twist that has made their journey so agonizingly complicated. The same soul that broke them is the only soul that can heal them. The same hands that dropped their heart are the only hands that can pick up the pieces. The same love that wounded them is the only love that can make them whole. And they have known this, at some deep inarticulate level, for their entire current life. They have felt the pull of you with a force that defies every rational instinct for self-preservation, every reasonable argument for staying away, every logical warning from the survival-oriented part of their brain that says, "Run, protect yourself, do not open that door again, because the last time you opened it you were destroyed." And yet the pull persists. It persists because it is not a preference or a choice, or a decision that can be made and unmade by the conscious mind. It is a gravitational force, as fundamental and as non-negotiable as the force that holds planets in their orbits and galaxies in their clusters. It is the pull of a shared origin, the magnetism of two souls that were created from the same spiritual substance, and that will, by the immutable laws of their nature, seek each other out across any distance, and through any barrier, and despite any history until they are finally reunited in a way that is permanent and complete, and whole. Your special person has been fighting that pull for their entire life. They have been fighting it with every weapon in the human arsenal: denial and distraction, and rationalization and projection and suppression, and all the sophisticated psychological defense mechanisms that the brilliant traumatized human mind constructs to protect itself from the thing it wants most and fears most simultaneously. They have been fighting it, because the pull feels dangerous, because the last time they followed it, the last time they surrendered to it, completely, they were annihilated, not physically annihilated, but spiritually annihilated in a way that is far worse, because spiritual annihilation does not kill the body. It leaves the body alive and walking and functioning, while the inner landscape resembles a bombed city, a wasteland of rubble and ash, where a thriving metropolis of trust and love and hope once stood. They have been fighting it, and they have been losing, and the losing has been terrifying them, because every fiber of their being, every cell of their body, every strand of their spiritual DNA is screaming at them to protect themselves from you, and yet the force that draws them toward you is stronger than all of that screaming combined. They have lain awake at night, wrestling with this contradiction, torn between the ancient wisdom of their wound which says stay away, and the eternal truth of their soul which says, come closer. And the war between those two imperatives has been raging inside them, with an intensity that has made their daily life feel like a battlefield, a place of constant internal conflict, where peace is impossible, because the two sides are too evenly matched, and too deeply committed to their positions, to ever reach a compromise. And then the revelation happened. Then the vault blew open and they saw you, not just the you of this life, but the you of all your lives, the you of the past life, where you were the one who held their heart and the one who dropped it, the you of the original love and the original breaking, and the war inside them escalated from a simmering conflict to a full-blown crisis of existential proportions. Because now the dilemma is no longer theoretical, now it is not an abstract tension between desire and self-protection, now it has a face and a name and a history, and a body of evidence so specific and so damning that the self-protective part of their psyche has seized upon it with desperate triumphant fury and is screaming, see, I told you they were dangerous. I told you this love would destroy you. Look at what happened last time. Look at the evidence. Look at the wreckage. How can you possibly consider opening yourself to this person again? When the last time you did it nearly ended you. We understand their panic completely. We hold it with the tenderness of a parent holding a terrified child, and we do not judge it, or dismiss it, or minimize it in any way. Because their fear is not irrational. It is the perfectly logical response of a soul that has been badly hurt, and that possesses enough memory, enough spiritual awareness, enough raw honest self-knowledge, to recognize the pattern of potential danger, and sound the alarm. Their panic is their wound speaking, and their wound deserves to be heard, because it is not a weakness or a flaw or a dysfunction. It is a record, a testimony, a sacred document of everything they survived, and it has as much right to be present in this moment as the love that brought you together. But here is what their wound cannot see. Because wounds by their nature have a limited field of vision, focused as they are on the danger of the past rather than the possibility of the future. Here is what the panic, for all its ferocity and all its legitimate authority, cannot encompass. The soul that broke their heart in that past life is not the same soul that exists now. And we do not mean this in some glib dismissive way, as if to say, "Oh, that was a long time ago, you are different now, just forget about it and move on." We mean this in the most profound and spiritually rigorous sense available to our understanding. The soul that committed that betrayal in that past life was operating at a different stage of its evolution, at a different level of awareness, with a different set of capacities and a different degree of access to its own divine nature. That soul was younger, in spiritual terms, less experienced, less developed, carrying karmic patterns and unconscious drives and unresolved wounds of its own, that it did not yet have the tools or the wisdom to process. That does not excuse what happened. We want to be very clear about this, because this is a point where many spiritual teachings go wrong, offering cheap grace and premature forgiveness that bypasses the legitimate reality of pain, in favor of a tidy resolution that serves the comfort of the forgiver more than the healing of the forgiven. What happened in that past life was wrong. It caused real suffering, it left real damage, and the soul that caused that damage, your soul, dear soul, has been carrying the weight of it forward through every subsequent incarnation, not as a vague metaphysical abstraction, but as a lived experiential reality, a karmic imprint that has shaped the contours of your current life in ways you have not fully understood until now. You have been carrying the guilt of that ancient betrayal in your bones, and you did not even know it was guilt, because it wore so many disguises. It wore the disguise of unworthiness, that quiet persistent voice inside you, that says you do not deserve love, that good things are not meant for you, that whenever something beautiful enters your life, it is only a matter of time before it is taken away, because you are fundamentally undeserving of lasting happiness. It wore the disguise of self-sabotage, the unconscious pattern of destroying the very things you cherish most, pushing away the people who love you precisely, when the love begins to feel real and permanent, and therefore terrifying, because some ancient part of you believes that you are the one who breaks things. That destruction is your nature, that the kindest thing you can do for anyone who gets close to you is to leave before you inevitably cause the kind of damage you caused before. It wore the disguise of restlessness, that nagging sensation that something is wrong, that you are living on borrowed time, that the comfortable life you have built is a house of cards that is going to collapse, because you are standing on a foundation of unacknowledged debt, a spiritual debt incurred in another life and never repaid. You have been living under the weight of all of this, and you have not understood why. You have gone to therapists and counselors and healers and advisors, trying to find the source of the unnamed heaviness that sits on your chest like a stone. And some of those encounters have been helpful, and some have been less so, but none of them have reached the root of the problem. Because the root is not in this life, the root is in a life you do not consciously remember, a life whose details are stored, not in the memory banks of your brain, but in the deeper, more permanent archives of your soul, accessible only through the kind of spontaneous spiritual revelation that does not respond to clinical inquiry or therapeutic technique, but arrives only when the divine timing is right, only when the soul has reached a stage of readiness that makes the truth not just bearable but necessary for its continued growth. Your special person's revelation is the catalyst for your own. Their seeing of you, their recognition of who you are across the span of lifetimes, is the mirror that is being held up to your face, so that you can finally see yourself clearly, not just as the person you are in this life, but as the person you have been across all your lives, a person of immense depth and immense complexity, a person capable of extraordinary love, and also capable of extraordinary failure, a person who has been on both sides of the wound, both the inflicting and the receiving, and who carries within their soul the full spectrum of human experience in its most intense and most concentrated form. When your special person looks at you now, they see this full spectrum, and it is this fullness, this completeness of vision, that is driving their panic. They are not panicking because they see a monster, they are panicking because they see a paradox. They see the person who hurt them most in the world, and the person who loves them most in the world, and these two people are the same person, living in the same body, looking at them with the same eyes. And the cognitive and emotional dissonance of holding these two truths simultaneously is so overwhelming that their psyche is literally trembling under the strain of it. And beneath the panic, beneath the fear, beneath the defensive armor that their wound has spent a lifetime constructing, there is something else. There is a recognition so deep and so old and so powerful that even the panic cannot fully suppress it. There is the recognition that you are their person, not just in this life but in all lives, not just in the easy comfortable seasons of love, but in the difficult devastating seasons of loss and betrayal and repair. You are their person in the way that a star is the center of its solar system, not by choice or by merit, but by the fundamental gravitational fact of its existence, and everything in their world orbits around you, whether they want it to or not, whether they acknowledge it or not, whether the acknowledgement would make them safer, or put them in greater danger. They are in a panic, because they are standing at the edge of a cliff, and they know, with every cell in their body, that they are going to jump, not because they are reckless, or self-destructive, or lacking in the basic survival instinct that every living being possesses, but because they have finally understood something that changes the calculation entirely. They have understood that staying on the cliff, staying safe, staying protected behind the walls of their wound, is not actually living. It is surviving, and they have been surviving for so long that they forgot what living felt like, until the memory of that past life came flooding back and reminded them that once, in another time, in another body, they lived more fully, and more completely and more joyfully than they have ever lived since. And the reason they lived that way was because they loved without reservation, and without protection, and without the calculating guardedness that has defined every relationship of their current existence. They are in a panic, because they have just realized that the cost of safety is aliveness. And they have been paying that cost for their entire current life, without fully understanding what they were buying with their payment. And now that they have seen the alternative, now that the memory of how it felt to love you completely has been restored to them in all its devastating vividness, the prospect of returning to the safe gray half-life of emotional self-protection feels like a fate, worse than the risk of being broken again. We need you to understand something critical. At this juncture, dear soul, something that is going to determine the course of everything that follows. The fact that you broke their heart in a past life does not make you a bad person in this life. It does not make you dangerous. It does not make you unworthy of love. It does not mean that you are destined to repeat the same pattern, or inflict the same damage, or cause the same suffering. It means that you are a soul in evolution, a soul that has made mistakes and suffered consequences, and carried guilt, and been shaped by the weight of its own history, in ways that are both painful and profoundly important for its continued growth and development. And here is the part that is going to be hardest for you to hear. The part that your own guilt will resist with every ounce of its considerable strength, but the part that is most essential for you to integrate, if you are going to move through this moment with the grace and courage that it demands. The breaking was necessary, not in a cruel cosmic sense, not in a way that assigns blame or justifies harm, but in the deeper structural sense that the entire arc of your shared soul journey required this chapter of separation and pain in order to reach the destination it was always heading toward. The love you share with your special person is not a simple love. It is not the kind of love that develops between two souls meeting for the first time, unencumbered by history, unburdened by the weight of past failures. It is a love that has been tested in the most extreme conditions available to the universe, the conditions of total trust, followed by total betrayal, followed by total separation, followed by the slow agonizing miraculous process of finding each other again across the impossible distances of time and space, and incarnational boundaries. That kind of love, the love that survives that kind of test, is qualitatively different from any other kind of love. It is stronger, it is deeper, it is more resilient, it is more honest, it is more awake. Because it has been forged in the furnace of the worst thing that can happen between two souls, and it has emerged not just intact but purified, refined, burnished to a brilliance that would have been impossible without the fire. The breaking did not destroy the love. It tested it, and the love survived. It survived the original betrayal in that past life. It survived the separation across incarnations. It survived the unconscious carrying of guilt and grief and unresolved longing through multiple lifetimes. It survived the long, difficult years of your current life, when neither of you understood why you felt the way you felt, or what you were searching for, or why the ache in your chest never fully went away, no matter what you did, or who you were with, or how hard you tried to build a life that didn't require the one person you couldn't have. The love survived all of it. And it is here now, in this moment, in this room, in this exchange between heaven and earth, vibrating with the accumulated force of everything it has endured, and it is asking in its quiet, insistent way to be given another chance. Not to repeat the past, because repetition is not possible, when the souls involved have evolved to the point where the patterns that created the original failure can no longer be activated. Not to erase the past, because erasure would be a denial of everything you have both suffered, and everything you have both learned through that suffering. But to complete the past, to bring the story to the ending it was always meant to reach, the ending where the love that was broken is finally made whole, where the trust that was shattered is finally restored, where the two souls who have been wandering through the wilderness of separation find their way back to each other, and stand together in the clearing. And look at each other with eyes that have seen everything, the beauty and the horror, the tenderness and the cruelty, the devotion and the betrayal, and say with full knowledge and full acceptance, and full mature evolved honest love, I choose you again, not because I have forgotten what happened, but because I have finally understood why it happened, and I am ready to write the next chapter. Your special person will come to this place. They are not there yet because the panic is still too fresh, the memories are still too vivid, the vault is still open, and its contents are still spilling out in a torrent that is overwhelming their capacity to process it all in real time. They need time, they need space, they need the kind of patient, compassionate understanding that does not demand resolution on any schedule, other than the one their soul sets, and they need to know, whether through your words or your actions, or the simple steady unwavering presence of your energy in their life, that you are not the person you were in that past life, not because you are a different soul, you are not, you are the same soul, but because you are a transformed soul, a soul that has been shaped and deepened, and opened by the very suffering that your past life actions caused, a soul that carries the memory of that breaking, not as a weapon to be used again, but as a sacred wound that has become a source of wisdom and tenderness, and an absolute refusal to cause that kind of pain to another human being ever again. They need to see this in you, and they will see it, because the spiritual sight that allowed them to recognize you, across the boundary of incarnations, is the same sight that will allow them to perceive the evolution that has occurred within you, since that past life. They will see, when the panic subsides enough for them to look clearly, that the guilt you have been carrying has done its work, has refined you, has burned away the selfishness, and the cowardice, and the unconscious cruelty that allowed the original betrayal to occur, and has left behind something that is not just healed, but healed, in a way that makes you incapable of repeating the injury, in the same way that a bone that has been broken and properly reset, is actually stronger at the breakpoint than it was before the fracture. We want to speak to you now about what you need to do, not because we doubt your ability to find your own way through this. Your soul knows the path, even when your conscious mind does not, but because the guidance of heaven is always offered freely, and without obligation, a gift that you are welcome to use or set aside as your own wisdom dictates. The first thing you need to do is breathe. We mean this literally and figuratively. The revelation you have just received is going to send waves of emotion through your body that are going to be intense and disorienting, and potentially overwhelming, and the simplest, most effective, most immediate thing you can do to manage those waves is to breathe, deeply and slowly and consciously, filling your lungs completely, and releasing the breath in a steady measured rhythm that tells your nervous system that you are safe, that this is not an emergency, that the truth, however enormous, is not going to destroy you. The second thing you need to do is resist the urge to run to your special person immediately. We know that this is going to be agonizing, because every cell of your being is going to want to go to them, to hold them, to explain, to apologize, to fix, to heal, to do whatever it takes to close the distance that this revelation has opened between you. But your special person is in a delicate place right now. A place where the wrong gesture at the wrong time could cause more harm than good, not because your intentions would be wrong, but because their capacity to receive your intentions is compromised by the intensity of what they are processing. They need to come to you when they are ready, and they will come to you, because the same force that is pulling them toward you, despite their fear, is not going to relent. It is going to intensify, and eventually, whether it takes hours or days or weeks, the pull will overcome the panic, and they will find themselves standing at your door, or reaching for your phone, or typing your name into a message field, or simply appearing in your space with that look on their face. That devastating, beautiful, complicated look that says, "I know who you are, I know what you did, I know what we are, and I am choosing you anyway." The third thing you need to do is begin the process of remembering. Not forcing the memories, not straining to access information that is not yet ready to be accessed, but opening yourself to the gentle current of recollection that is already beginning to flow through you as a result of this revelation. The past life is in you, stored in the deepest archives of your soul, and now that the seal has been broken, now that the existence of that life has been confirmed by your special person's recognition, the memories will begin to surface naturally and organically, arriving in fragments and flashes, in dreams and daydreams, in moments of unexpected emotion triggered by a scent or a sound, or a quality of light that your soul associates with that other time. Allow these memories to come. Do not resist them, or judge them, or try to control the order or the pace of their arrival. They are coming to you now, because you are ready to receive them, and they will come in exactly the way, and at exactly the speed that serves your highest healing. When the memories come, and they will come, you are going to feel things that you have never felt before in this life. Emotions so ancient and so raw and so powerful, that they will seem to belong to someone else, and in a sense they do. They belong to the person you were in that past life, the person who made choices that the person you are now would never make, but the emotions are yours because the soul is yours, and the love that gave rise to those emotions is the same love that lives in your chest right now, the same love that has been quietly, stubbornly, insistently burning in you for your entire current life like an ember that refuses to go out. No matter how much cold wind blows across it, you are going to feel the love first, the original love, the love as it was before the breaking, and it is going to hit you like a tidal wave, a wall of feeling so enormous and so intense that your body will not know what to do with it. You may weep, you may laugh, you may do both simultaneously. You may feel your chest expand to a degree that is physically uncomfortable, as if your rib cage is being forced to accommodate a heart that has suddenly doubled or tripled in size, and the pressure of that expansion is going to be both painful and ecstatic, like a birth, like the painful, joyful, violent emergence of something new and alive, and screaming with the full force of its existence. You are going to feel the love, and then you are going to feel the guilt, and the guilt is going to be devastating, more devastating than anything you have experienced in this life, because it is not guilt that can be rationalized or contextualized or mitigated by the passage of time and the acquisition of understanding. It is primal guilt. The guilt of a soul that knows it caused suffering to the person it loved most, and that knowledge is going to sit in your chest like a stone, heavy and immovable and cold. You are going to want to be swallowed by it. You are going to want to drown in it, to let it consume you completely, because the part of you that believes you deserve punishment is going to seize upon this guilt as confirmation of everything it has always believed about your fundamental unworthiness. Do not let it consume you. Feel it, yes, honor it, yes, it is a sacred emotion, a testament to your capacity for empathy and accountability and genuine remorse. But do not let it become the defining story of your existence, because the guilt is not the whole story. It is one chapter, one passage, one thread in a tapestry that also includes the original love, the evolution that followed the breaking, the lifetimes of growth and learning and spiritual deepening that have transformed you from the soul who was capable of that betrayal into the soul who is standing here now, receiving this truth with open eyes and a full heart and a willingness to face the consequences of your history with courage and grace and an unshakable commitment to doing better, being better, loving better in this life than you did in that one. And then, after the love and after the guilt, you are going to feel something else, something that may surprise you with its unexpectedness and its power. You are going to feel gratitude. Not gratitude for the suffering, not gratitude for the breaking, not gratitude for the lifetimes of pain that flowed from the original betrayal, but gratitude for the journey, for the whole impossible, beautiful, agonizing, magnificent journey that has brought you to this moment of truth. Because this moment, this exact moment in which you are receiving the full truth of who you are, and who your special person is to you, and what your connection really means in the cosmic scheme of things, this moment would not be possible without every single step that preceded it, including the steps that caused harm, including the steps that caused pain, including the steps that you wish with everything in you, that you could take back and undo, and erase from the record. The gratitude will come, because you will understand, in a flash of insight, that arrives like a gift from the divine, that the breaking was not the end of the story, but the necessary middle chapter, that made the ending possible. Without the breaking, there would have been no separation. Without the separation, there would have been no growth. Without the growth, there would have been no evolution. Without the evolution, there would have been no reunion. And without the reunion, the love that is now poised to flood into both of your lives, with a force and a depth, and a beauty that neither of you has ever experienced, would not exist in its current magnificent form. The love you are about to share is not the love of two naive souls meeting for the first time, untested and unproven. It is the love of two ancient souls who have been through the fire together and emerged on the other side, not unscathed but unbroken, not unchanged but unseparated, not without scars, but with scars that tell a story of survival and resilience, and a commitment to each other that transcends death and incarnation and the passage of millennia. Your special person is going to arrive at this understanding too, but they are going to arrive at it in their own time, and in their own way, and the path they take to get there may not look like the path you take. Their journey through the panic, and the fear, and the anger and the grief may involve detours, and setbacks, and moments of apparent regression that are going to test your patience and your faith, and your ability to hold space for their process without trying to rush it, or fix it, or make it conform to the timeline you would prefer. They may push you away. They may say things that hurt. They may build walls that seem impenetrable. They may retreat into silence or hostility, or a cold, indifferent distance that feels worse than open anger, because at least anger acknowledges the significance of what is at stake. When this happens, and it may happen, you are going to need to draw upon a reserve of strength and patience and unconditional love that you did not know you possessed. You are going to need to remind yourself, in the darkest and most discouraging moments, that the person who is pushing you away is the same person who is fighting their way toward you, that the walls they are building are the same walls they are trying to dismantle, that the distance they are creating is the same distance they are trying to close, and that the apparent contradiction between their words and their deepest truth is not a sign that the love is failing, but a sign that the love is being tested in the same way it was tested before, but this time by souls that are strong enough and wise enough and evolved enough to pass the test. You are not the person you were in that past life. We want to say this to you again and again, until it penetrates through the layers of guilt and shame and self-judgment that are already beginning to calcify around your heart. You are not that person. You are the person that person became after a lifetime of reckoning with what they did. After the karmic consequences had done their refining work, after the soul had been broken open by the weight of its own failure, and rebuilt from the inside out, with materials of a higher quality, materials like humility and compassion, and a bone-deep understanding of the sacred responsibility that comes with being trusted with another person's heart. Your special person will see this. They are already seeing it, even through the panic, even through the fear, even through the cacophony of their wound, screaming at them to run. They are seeing the you that you are now, and they are recognizing, with the same spiritual sight that allowed them to identify you across the boundary of incarnations, that the evolution is real, that the change is genuine, that the person standing before them in this life is not a repetition of the person who broke them in that life, but a transformation of that person, a healed and deepened and fundamentally altered version that carries the same soul signature, but operates from a completely different center of gravity. The panic will pass. We promise you this with the absolute authority of heaven. The panic will pass because it is temporary by nature, an acute response to a sudden overwhelming revelation, and acute responses, however intense, eventually give way to the slower, more sustainable processing that allows for genuine integration and understanding. The memories will settle into their proper place in the narrative of your shared existence. The emotions will find their natural rhythm, the wild oscillation between terror and love and grief and hope will gradually stabilize into something that is still intense, but is no longer destabilizing, something that can be held and examined and understood rather than simply endured. And when the panic passes, what will be left is the truth. The whole beautiful, complicated, devastating, glorious truth of two souls, who chose each other before the world began, who were separated by their own choices, and the consequences of those choices, who wandered through the wilderness of incarnational separation, carrying the phantom pain of a love that refused to die, and who have now, in this life, in this moment, in this precise alignment of divine timing and human readiness, been brought back together for the final chapter of a story that has been in the making. Since before the stars were lit, your special person is going to come back to you. They are going to come back, not despite the truth of what they have discovered, but because of it. Because the truth, once fully integrated and fully understood, is going to reveal to them what we have known all along, that the love between you is not fragile, not easily broken, not the kind of thing that can be destroyed by one act of failure in one life out of many. The love between you is the most durable thing in the universe, more durable than mountains, more durable than stars, more durable than time itself, because it was not created by human hands, and it cannot be destroyed by human actions. It was created by the divine, woven into the fabric of your souls at the moment of their creation, and it will endure through every test, and every trial, and every breaking, and every mending, until it has fulfilled its purpose, which is nothing less than the complete reunion of two halves of a single magnificent eternal soul. Dear soul, you are loved. You are loved by the heavens that watch over you. You are loved by the divine source from which you came. And you are loved, with a love that has survived the worst that the universe can throw at it, by the special person who is right now, in this very moment, wrestling with the beautiful, terrible paradox of who you are and who you were, and who you are becoming. They are wrestling, and they are struggling, and they are afraid, but they are not turning away. They are not walking out. They are standing in the fire of this truth, and they are letting it burn away everything that is false, so that what remains, what is left when the fear has been consumed, and the defenses have been dismantled, and the wound has been allowed to finally speak its truth and be heard, is the real thing, the original thing, the thing that was there before the world began and will be there after the world ends, the love, the indestructible, eternal, transcendent love. That is the truest thing about both of you and the truest thing about the journey you have shared. Hold on, be patient, be brave, trust the process, trust the love, trust the timing, trust the divine hands that have been guiding this story from its first page, and that are not about to abandon it before the final chapter is written. They are coming. The truth has opened the door, and what walks through it is going to change everything. This we promise you, from the highest heaven, with all the love that heaven contains. The best is not behind you. It is not even the painful, magnificent present you are standing in. The best is ahead of you, waiting at the end of a road that is shorter than you think, illuminated by a light that is brighter than you dare to imagine, and it is called reconciliation, redemption, and a love so complete and so unbreakable, that when you finally stand in its fullness together, you will look back at this moment, this terrifying, beautiful, necessary moment of truth, and you will say with tears of gratitude streaming down your faces, "It was worth it, every life, every loss, every breaking, every mending, it was all worth it, because it brought us here, and here is where we were always meant to be." The heavens are watching. The angels are holding their breath. The golden thread is blazing with a light that can be seen across every dimension of existence. And the love, that ancient, indestructible, magnificent love, is gathering itself for its final homecoming. Be ready, dear soul, be still, be open, be brave. The truth has arrived, and everything is about to begin again.